Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Convo and Kettlebells. This is Charles.
Hey guys, this is Heidi. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are talking with Dr. Bob and Mikey, who are phenoterps, the pickaxes and shovels in the cannabis industry. They support testing, safety, formulation, quality management, and best practices. Both are U.S. veterans. Robert spent 8.5 years in the U.S. Army as a biochemist, and Mike will be finishing 20 years in the U.S. Air Force tomorrow. Ooh. So thank you both for your service, and thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And you guys are out here from Tucson.
Currently in Tucson, Arizona, which is where we met.
Yes.
That's facts.
At the gym.
At the gym.
Yes. Yeah. You guys had a bit of a trip getting out of here, too.
You make me, like, your guys' experience makes me want to never fly.
Well, Mike's bad luck.
Yeah, no, I had window seats for most of the flights here, but he did 20 hours in the middle, so he really wanted to be out here. So
Really wanted to be out.
Absolutely.
Now
Appreciate it.
I have very high expectations now.
We'll say. We'll make it happen. So we'll kind of dive into it. Today's, and just to preface everyone listening and watching, today's like a little different. Usually, we're kava, kratom, sometimes a little bit into cannabis. We're going to kind of a different route today and kind of a different perspective. And something I think is pretty cool because what they are doing is essentially bringing, terpenes. And I think everyone kind of has an idea what terpenes are to an extent. I know I'm not the most educated on it, so I'm excited to kind of get more to the science and where they all come from. But kind of the whole idea of, all right, what terpenes are, what do they do for the body, and what kind of entourage effects are there? And then potentially, what place do they have in the botanical world as far as bringing terpenes to kava, kratom, functional mushrooms, and, what's kind of on the horizon? What do you guys see? And then kind of what's your, your thought as far as formulations go as well?
Got you. Well, terpenes, if you're familiar with essential oils, that's what terpenes are. It's the most abundant organic molecule, class of organic molecule. Most plants produce them, and they signal between plants. So they have some biological effect. Alpha and beta pinene, are the haze that you see above, forests. Like when you smell that, those are the trees talking to each other, literally. All the other terpenes that you've heard of, myrcene, you can find terpinolene, beta-caryophyllene. These are from mangoes and black pepper and things like that. They're used in cleaners. They're used in food. They're food-grade terpenes. You know what potpourri is? You guys have seen that?
Yeah.
Those are essential.
Yeah.
That's where I saw it. Those are essential oils.
Okay.
So they're used in lots of broad applications, not only in the industrial, but on the food side, in pharma. You smell, limonene, linalool in lotions and things like that. Functional terpenes became popular with cannabis because cannabis sativa specifically produces lots and lots of terpenes. The reason it does that is because of the building blocks of cannabinoids. So it has a lot of the regular function that most plants would have, but then this additional function that's directed at biochemistry. And some of those building blocks that make up a cannabinoid are things like caryophyllene. So it's like part of the lock and key that already fits into the CD2 receptor. Caryophyllene does in the same way like CBD does. So while there's some probably neurological effect of essential oils and it makes you feel a certain way, there's also a little bit of evidence out there for real biological processes happening. That said, it's, at best, mood altering. People use essential oils all the time to make a room feel brighter. That's usually with limonene. So is there an exact correlation between limonene and being woken up? Well, I don't know. But, you'll find limonene, terpinolene, and a little bit of myrcene in most sativa cannabis strains. And what do you mean by sativa? It's like, well, that has a lot to do with the phenotypes that have been grown in different areas. But from a marketing perspective, people associate sativa with waking up, indica with going to sleep.
Right.
There aren't a list of terpenes that belong in one category or the other. But when you start looking at the culmination of all those products that are in the cannabis plant, what we call the entourage effect between the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, and the terpenes, you start to see profiles that sort of start to stick out. It's like, well, we see this a lot in sedating strains. And we see this other combination in, alertness. And so it's a marketing thing on one hand, but on the other hand, there is some neurogastronomy, there is some psychological effect that you can have. And so the use of botanical terpenes extracted from nature, from black pepper, from pine trees, or from mangoes, being reblended and added back into functional beverages in the cannabis space has been one way to really not only add value, but add some perceived or possibly some real effect. And it hasn't gone away in 10, 15 years. So people are actually achieving the effects, or at least they think they are, with, well-blended terpenes. And that comes from two places. One is understanding the science behind it and doing some analysis, which is one of the things we do in the cannabis space, safety and quality. But the other side is, how does it make you feel? And no great restaurant, no great wine is great without a top, Michelin star chef or a sommelier. So we have similar type people with backgrounds analyzing the sense and the feeling that you have from cannabis products and reproducing those into botanical strains. And we've had a lot of success in the functional product, like these drinks that we produce. They have botanical terpenes in them and a little bit of THC. So we have CBD relief varieties, but we also have sativa and indica. And, botanical terpene blends have found their way into those functional beverages.
One thing too, though, is because like when I think terpenes, again, I always thought about cannabis, right? That's what I associate terpenes with. But now, realizing that they're from all these other places out there, kind of in nature. But, going back to kind of like the mood effect, I think like within the botanical space, with anything that people are ingesting, they want like an effect or a mood from it. Like you drink kava to put you like in a relaxed mood, right? You might have like, lion's mane or cordyceps to put you in an energized mood. Well, I don't say like mood, but like, a state, right? Kratom, puts you in a certain mood. A lot of people will use it for pain relief or to relax or as an alcohol replacement. So with the terpenes, though, are you seeing, and to preface, there's no products out there outside of the cannabis that we know of that have added terpenes. So you don't see kava with terpene, you don't see kratom with terpene. Knowing that has that mood effect, is that kind of what you guys are moving towards, is combining with that to kind of have, an entourage effect with those botanicals in a sense?
Yeah, we think so. It is a mood. The same way a floor cleaner or an essential oil will provide some kind of smell and it makes the room feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That's probably the extent of what it could do, but in any other product. And the way we're interested in this, in fact, we're going to rename your show Cannabis and Kettlebells today. I've honestly never used Kratom. My first kava experience was with you guys.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. But since leaving the military and getting into the cannabis space, it has been the thing that's replaced alcohol for me.
100%.
Folks using kratom and kava are functionally doing that to replace alcohol or benzos or opioids. Same thing with cannabis. So I see a lot of crossover between what we figured out in the cannabis space, not from what sells, but like what mood does it provide. And everything in cannabis is totally functional. Yeah, people like to get high, but dealing with pain, dealing with anxiety, dealing with insomnia, there's a biologically active molecule, but then there's everything around it that does provide an entourage, and it's undeniable. Because when you have a straight THC product, it doesn't do the same as one that's been reformulated or been, undergone like a full spectrum extract in the same way you guys do with like kava. So I think there's a total opportunity to cross over, not only because the folks trying functional beverages between cannabis, kava, and kratom are looking to replace the same things, but they're looking to achieve the same effects.
Would you say that terpenes, though, like you said, it's the feeling, they are not psychoactive or psychedelic?
No, they're not.
And I feel like that's what a lot of people, they think of cannabis,
right.
They think of terpenes, so they think like, oh, well, is this going to mess with me?
Yeah,
but it wouldn't.
It should. It
Yeah.
should. I mean, there's some biological evidence of beta-caryophyllene binding to the CB2 receptor in the same way that CBD does. So if you smell some black pepper, you might feel an anxiety decrease. Those slight mood altering biochemical pathways are the most we can target. Beyond that, it's sort of like, well, this smells like something that is waking me up, refreshing, or calming me down. And that's kind of the extent of it.
Which, I mean, I would say too, like, an effect's an effect, right?
That's right.
I'm not saying like placebo, but
I think a placebo effect is still very valid. Like,
Yeah,
it's still an effect.
But I agree in the fence, because we use essential oils for like,
I used to do doTERRA, I was the oil girl, so.
but they were like, I found them effective. There are some that like,
We used
like, I forget
lavender with our kids would be crying. We would have them sniff lavender and it would instantly calm them down.
there was one like if you had like a stuffed up nose, you would smell it.
Yeah, like peppermint,
Yeah,
and
and it would
eucalyptus.
open it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a valid, like a super valid use case. And the whole thing too with botanicals is when you're using these, and this kind of even goes back to the extract example, because a lot of times people will use kava extract, like the first time they'll get it from a seltzer, and you're just isolating, the kava extract. You're not getting the whole, we call it like the traditional grind or medium grind, like the, actual stuff that you drink and squeeze and, go through everything. And with kava extract, like you'll feel it, but you don't get the same effect as you do drinking normal kava. And I agree with you in the sense that it's the same thing with like cannabis, right? Smoking flower is a lot different experience than like, taking a hit off like whatever, like super vape.
Or even like a gummy versus a drink versus like they all feel so different.
The route of administration matters
Sure.
a lot. First pass metabolism creates different metabolites that affect you differently. But you nailed it with some of those other products like peppermint, that's glucagon, that's a terpene. Halls, eucalyptol, that's eucalyptus extract. I mean, that's a terpene. So those effects, while they might not be directly biochemical, they've been used in products forever to do exactly what we're talking about. The cannabis plant and the cannabis industry has given us this opportunity to study how they all work together. And it's like lavender or geraniol from, a rose. You smell a rose and it smells really, really nice. Well, what is that emotional feeling that you have? Is that biochemical or is that placebo? Well, it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Neurogastronomy, completely. And, how does your olfaction respond? There's now a broader, base of data that suggests these are, sativa-like or alertness-like. So if you see a high concentration of terpenylene with a little bit of limonene, you might think that that's a sativa type life. Yeah, so it's not necessarily that there's one category or another, but there are some, like in high concentrations, you have a little bit of myrcene in a sativa blend, but in an indica blend, a high level of myrcene. And it does something weird biologically. Don't know the exact mechanism, but it potentiates THC and it gives you that couch lock feeling. And those strains would happen to have linalool and myrcene and a little bit of limonene. So things you'd find in sativa, but in different levels, and they're just very, very sleepy, and then we see these effects happen. And it's without exception. We'll find the similar profiles do similar things, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to your own biochemistry.
Right.
Everybody's is very, very different. And we can market general effects. And that's probably why we haven't moved past the indica and the sativa, because they're so general. But every individual that's going down the pathway of finding a functional solution to whatever their issue is needs to do some trial and error and figure out what works for them, because they'll find that solution. And it's just, the human body, the human mind is way too complex to solve that, and pharma is very good at taking one molecule and saying, on average, this is how it looks.
On average.
They're so horrible at taking multiple, like plant-based medicines and saying, well, this is the effect, because humans aren't an average, they're all individuals. Mm-hmm. And personalized medicine is the way that medicine is going, just with genomics, like generally, and things like that. So I think we're on the right path when we start looking at natural solutions to say, this is what is copacetic with my body. This is how it works. And to hell with what everybody else says. It's really an individual experience.
And I love that you said that, because that's something we stress to our audience all the time is, especially when it comes to kava, you have your heavy and your heady, which is similar. Mm-hmm. We say like indica and sativa, have those nighttime, those daytime. But again, everyone's body is so different. And there's some that, for most people, it's great for the nighttime. And Charles used it, and it kept him up. Yeah. And, everyone's body is going to respond a little bit different. So I love that you give that, everyone's body is just chemistry, and everything mixes differently.
That's right. Well, sometimes you're awake because your mind is racing. Other times you're awake because your back hurts, your knee hurts.
Right.
And so 2 different sleep solutions. One might be caryophyllene heavy. Another one might be a CBD heavy type. And they can have different use cases.
So let me ask this, and I know, like in the cannabis industry right now, and I think it's getting more popular. I think it's becoming more accepted in general. But I think when people think of cannabis, they think of the dispensary, the smoke shops, the vapes, the edibles, the flower, all that. With terpenes, though, like in the cannabis industry right now, is there many people messing specifically with just terpenes? And is that like I'm ignorant. Like, how big is like that market within cannabis? And is everyone, kind of like you said, pick a shovels? Is everyone focusing on cannabis proper, like dispensaries and everything like that? And then is there a smaller segment who's dealing with the terpenes? And those who are dealing with the terpenes, is it kind of more like I'm trying to think how to say this, like a holistic view towards using them versus like, cannabis. It's got many uses, but cannabis is cannabis, right? Versus terpenes, it sounds like cleaning products, everything else, right? So I guess like within the cannabis industry, is it far and few between who are doing just terpenes, or?
There are more people that are interested in terpenes from a botanical terpene and flavoring side. There's only a few of us doing it. There's actually a few big ones. We're a very small one, about to be a big one.
I like the mentality.
The use of terpenes is from the supply chain itself, recognizing that value needs to be added back, and the margin that is being sustained in the cannabis space, which is compressing, and it's going down with the price per pound and all that stuff. The value is being squeezed out with those processes that manufacture a product that markets an effect. So that is what is working. Those processes all take traditional manufacturing type approaches. So good manufacturing practices, understanding ingredients like terpenes, emulsions, so increases bioavailability and stability. So it's just kind of one of the legs to the stool of the value add coming into the space. And the real problem with terpenes in the cannabis space, the terpenes extracted from cannabis are really where it's at, because it's the plant extract. There's just not enough of that to go around, other than the very top shelf of the cannabis extracted terpenes that go into some rosin or sauce or something like that. But the botanical terpenes being added back in is very, very common in vapes, edibles, and drinks. And we're seeing that spread everywhere. So it's a value add, but the whole supply chain is in need of value add. And why? It's because the simple products don't do everything that you need it to do. Everybody's chasing high potency. So, what happens, the flower, the phenotype, gets bred to do one thing, produce just THC, and you actually lose the diversity of cannabinoids and terpenes in that process. So we're kind of going in the wrong direction with potency of just THC. It is all the value add of the terpene science.
It's like, we were talking about this last night at dinner, just like with cannabis, and how we try to find lower THC cannabis, or we'll cut it with CBD because it's so potent.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily looking to go on a different fucking planet at night. I just want to like back in the day, like when I was 14 smoking cannabis, right? It was obviously like bush weed, right?
What did you do?
I know, right? But like I was able to have a joint and, go play my drums and listen to music and have like a good time. And now, like when we like smoke, it's like we gotta be like it's like a baby hit and just be like very like, all right, we good, we good, we good. All right, we survived. And like we're even seeing that too, like with not kava, but more so kratom, because now you have the 7-OH, right? Because it's people are always like, it's the whole chasing the dragon.
Oh my gosh!
You can have kratom tea, right, or even like a kratom extract, but now people want more. And now we have 7-OH, which is insanely potent, and that's being proliferated, and it's given kratom a bad name.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, and to be fair, like sometimes we're lazy and we just hit the vape, instead of grinding up the flour and everything like that. It's easy, especially like before bed, right? But there's something about the whole flower and the whole experience of the plant that I do think gets lost when you start just trying to make it as potent as possible and extracting everything. And
yeah, I mean, it's the same with kava. Like when you have the kava seltzer beverages and you have the extracts, that's kava is a very cultural thing. There's so much meaning behind it, and actually kneading it and like preparing it is part of the process and the experience, right? And so when you're not doing that same thing, it's not the same.
We've lost something in the supply chain.
Yeah.
The wholesale economics are producing this problem for us and introducing safety issues, both in cannabis and kratom and kava. The synthetic production of active cannabinoids, whether it be Delta 8 or Delta 9 produced from CBD or any one of these other crazy molecules that are super active. Same thing with 7-OH. That's not a natural extract. So the supply chain is chasing almost like that pharmaceutical potency. And that's how things are being sold. So the customer, you walk into a dispensary, you don't even get to pick up the flower and smell it anymore. You
have to read the label.
You have to read the label, and the way it got into the dispensary was which highest test, COA, accompanied that sale to the dispensary. And those COAs are all bought and paid for too. So it's complete fraud. And I know because I've been in testing for 10 years, fixing labs. No. And I've got dirt on a lot of labs. Holy cow, you would not believe.
So you were testing in Arizona as it became recreationally legal.
Correct.
Okay, that must have been the Wild Wild West, I feel like.
It's the Wild Wild West in every state that decides to go legal and introduce testing.
Yeah.
And there's little improvements, but for the most part, regulators don't know what they're doing, like Department of Health or Department of Agriculture. Again, cannabis, they know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so they'll copy paste the broken regs from another state, and then they'll try to regulate. And they'll go to their, they do the best they can, but they're missing the big problems. Totally. And you mentioned something about the ritual. That COA isn't what used to sell weed. It was smell in the bag.
Yes.
And you know what you're smelling?
Yes.
He's all,
and it's like, why does that happen? Why do you know it's going to work? When you smell it, it's not placebo. It's like, I recognize that effect is going to be there for me. And that's how I'm going to pay for this pound. And
that's what I miss about
that's gone.
When I, not like throwing shade on them because they have like very good prices, and I know they're like, at least here in Florida, frowned upon, but True Leaf, right?
Yeah.
When I go there, same deal. Like I can't smell it, and like that's the whole thing. Like that's the whole
experience,
nostalgia and experience. Like I want to see it, and I want to see how sticky it is. I want to smell it. And you don't get that. It feels very like
medicinal.
Yeah, I get the access to medical card, but it feels very like stale.
Mm-hmm.
The whole experience.
Sterilized. It's industrial. And the reason for that, even the growers that know how to grow are told you must produce a pheno that produces high THC. If it's not over 20, it can't even sell 22%. And like, that's almost impossible to keep all of those medicinal properties and all the great attributes that you'd have from some guy growing in his closet or in a garage. He's going to produce something that probably a low tester and be thrown out at True Leaf because they're not interested in that part of the product. And every product that you get, they're going to have all these different crazy strain names. They all smell exactly the same because they're all split from like one set of genetics and then they're phenotypically selected for potency. So you get like this myopic, boring set of products all over the shelf, and you've lost all that ritual ability. You know, when you grind it up, you're smelling some terpenes and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's the production of it that literally does provide some of that value.
So I was not into, I did not. I did it here and there when I was younger, but I was more into alcohol. It wasn't until like the pandemic, that's when I got my medical card. And so I didn't, all this is like new information to me. So every strain is supposed to smell unique and different?
They all will. And not just every strain, it's the way that strain is grown. So there's the chemotype that is a result of the phenotype, that is a result of the genotype. So different chemovars out there, chemovars, have the same, they have a profile that you could look to. But the condition under which you grow those genetics, what kind of light, what kind of timing, what kind of temperature and humidity, that will change the phenotype or the expression of what the genetics provide. And so the terpene levels can go up and down there too. So it's as much been art as it is science.
That's just like how kava is. And actually kava does have chemotypes. And kava's got 6 main kava lactones, and there's a chemotype. It's a 6-digit code that tells you, okay, this is going to lean more heavy or balanced. And again, you have kava that comes from Hawaii, Tonga, Samoa, Fiji, Vanuatu. The volcanic soil is in those places. It produces a different, cultivar kava that's going to taste different, smell different, and give you different effects. So it makes sense with cannabis. And isn't that like still like a thing where like you go to these expos and it's like who's got like the most like unique strain and stuff like that, and like, or is that all out the window now?
There are some expos that are like that. House of Flowers in California, very grower based. The reason consolidation with True Leaf and another big MSOs, multi-state operators, it's not working for a lot of different reasons, but it's all about, real estate grab and a vertically integrated supply chain that produces Budweiser. You know what I'm saying? Just that one kind of thing. But there are expos that do well because there's boutique growers out there, and they're the ones providing the value. So even though they're small, they're on the top shelf. The expo we went to in Arizona, which is very, very potency focused, it's all the same strains. Like, it doesn't matter what brand hands you a product. It's like, I know where it came from.
Same shit.
I know exactly where. And, pre-rolls don't do it anymore. Now you have to add pure THCA diamonds to make that THC percentage go from like 20, 25% up to like 40, 50%.
Sure.
And it's like a pre-roll works like a dab now these days. And like, that is what's selling, and that's where the margin is. And if you, in this, conference you're at, like, people are just handing out pre-rolls like crazy, 60% of them were infused. Now, I don't mean like infused with just flavor or terpenes, I mean with the hash. So it's like, okay, you're going to do a pre-roll dab at this point.
Jeez.
Completely away from
I feel like what's the point?
the ritual part of it, where you just want to smell the terpenes, get a little bit of THC. Old school strains like Panama Red, 14, 15% at most. Perfect for relaxing. The heavy potencies didn't really come up until, war on drugs, like in the 70s, when strains were taken that would grow in a basement short, bushy plants. And that's sort of where the indica varieties came from. But then they're also been, they've been pushed to produce THC in a short amount of time, where sativas take a long time to grow. They're super tall. They're not like these coupache flowers. They're a little bit more, sparse. But all of those attributes provide the value that we're looking for. And the supply chain said, it doesn't economically make sense. So you sort of have to look. I think we need to be refined a little bit. But as we're seeing these failed consolidations, and not just for tax reasons and, bad acquisitions and things like that, products not having the variety that you need, we're seeing those boutique products stick around.
Well, I was even going to like kind of say, man, if United States, right? Like, obviously cannabis isn't legal everywhere, and I think it's growing in popularity, and I think the Farm Bill helped, the CBD derived, like the THCA. I know you educated me a little bit on that last night, but it's getting more popular. And I would think that with something getting more popular, you would want it to be a good experience, right? So when people come to cannabis for the first time, they're not going to get blazed out of their minds when they, have a pre-roll. Like, I would almost think there would be more options of that low dose THC products. That way, people who never use cannabis, when they're coming to this industry for the first time, they can kind of, get their feet wet into it before going right to that 20+%. And in my mind, it almost makes it seem like it's going to cause like a turnoff for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's education. It's like, why are you using it? Are you trying to have fun?
Well, I think it's like compares to like when you're 14 and start drinking for the first time. Nobody shows up and gets the Budweiser, like the 5%, like, oh, this is what alcohol is. They go get the bottle of Everclear or the Pop-Off because it's $10, and they're like, they're driving towards this experience. And same with, I think, in cannabis and these other industries, people are coming in and they're like, I've seen movies, the culture around it all for the past 20 years is kind of like, we need a party. Let's go full retard and go 50% on everything. And I just think it's a culture issue, like nationally, because
I agree.
In Europe, you can smoke when you're younger, both cigarettes and cannabis, and drink, and they don't have this like pedal to the metal, I want to get fucked up, versus like, hey, we're gonna meet up after school, we're gonna have a beer together, to come together and create that community around your friends. Like, that ritual is the positive thing. Whereas in America, I think it's like, I need to get fucked up and forget my whole life that I'm living right now for the next 3 or 4 hours. And then you fall into that cycle where you're chasing the dragon, want to do the same thing the next day or the next time that you're coming to it. And it's like, well, this worked last time to get me to exactly where I want. It was $10. So let's keep doing that. Versus building up like a culture around like a boutique product or something like that. And that's kind of why I'm coming into this space, because I've had 20 years of not using anything.
That's great.
And before I came in the military, you check my security.
So now when you get out, in 2 days, are you gonna chase the dragon, or are you gonna
go right for that?
No, because I like smoking cigars and sitting on the back porch with a couple friends and, bringing that fellowship together and exchanging ideas over stuff. So, and I'm old, so I don't really know if I'm going to chase the dragon. I might try it, but I also want to be a good example for the future generation, because I have 3 teenagers, so I don't, if it is in my house, want to be like couch locked or just wiling out. And my kids are like, well, not going to drink ever, not going to do this, because they all, like you're saying, there's a use case for all of it if you do it responsibly, and we'll see what happens.
And I think that's something like still I fight, because like I hate like the perception that cannabis has had the past 20 years. And I talk to a lot of friends who are against it, and I'm like, well, like,
meanwhile, they, drink a bottle of wine like every day.
Right. Like they're drinking stuff and all this stuff, and I'm like, I'm not calling you out, but like at the same time, I'll give you an example. Like when we smoke, like it's usually like 1 or 2 hits, because like if I know, because when I go to the dispensary, my options, it's this high potency stuff.
Yeah.
So like when we smoke, it's 1 or 2 hits and no more. Because I don't want to be, I just want to be relaxed. I want to have a good time making dinner and, hanging out and having a good conversation. I don't want to be stoned out of my mind, and it goes back to like, I tell people and be like, all right, well, can you, because it's like, oh, I don't want to smoke cannabis, it has a stigma around it and like all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, like when you go out, can you have like a beer or two? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, are you blacked out drunk? No. Right? I'm like, you're probably at dinner having a conversation. I'm like, it's the same thing when we use it. I'm not hitting the 10-foot bong. We're having a couple of hits.
It's only 8 feet.
It's 6 feet, but that's besides the point. But we're just having just enough to put us in a good mood, and So I've been to the spot where I've gotten too high before.
Yeah.
I
Don't
hate
like
so
it,
do not
yeah.
like it.
Right.
And
again, most of the people are people who they've never tried it. And so they're just exactly what you said. They're judging it off of the culture, the movies, the music. They have no idea. And they just assume that sort of stoner mentality, that couch lock. And that's not what it is.
They'd probably be surprised at how many like Fortune 500 company CEOs and
100%.
executive levels
tons.
are running off mushrooms, cannabis,
Yeah.
everything. It's just it's a tool, and you can either get a hammer and bash your knee with it, or you can hang up a picture with it. It's just a tool. What you're trying to get out of it, I think, is different for everybody.
Well, exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's a tool. And like any tool, any substance can be abused, right?
I think it's Paracelsus, I'm saying his name wrong, was the original father of modern toxicology. Everything is a poison, but for the dose. So
Yeah.
you can abuse absolutely anything.
Water.
So it's like seven.
Food,
Yeah.
too much.
Unlike food and heroin and sex and all these other things that have 20 to 30% of people that will be addicted to it, cannabis is like 7%. That number might have gone up a little bit now with these high potency strains. But
Right.
Now, what would you define addicted as?
someone who has a use disorder, they can't control it. They're doing it to stabilize their lives, and probably an associated physical and mental withdrawal effect. Cannabis is not that bad. Now, I've argued with many toxicologists about this. You're saying, what about high potency? And they've been beating the table about that since they learned that cannabis was produced anywhere else but at Alabama at 3% with, and studied at the National Institute of Drug Abuse. Like, well, hash has been made for a long fucking time, and everybody who uses cannabis does what you do. Most people, they titrate to an effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I got the effect I want, I'm going to stop. But, there's meth addicts that can't stop. There's 80% of people that try cocaine, do it and don't go back to it, but some just cannot stop. And they're addicted. And those addicted personalities are who are at risk, especially with those high potency, ways of, getting the medicine. And it's not medicine anymore, it's an abuse.
Yeah, and I think that's because even as someone, who's used cannabis for, over 20 years now, I do not like the stoner culture. Like, I don't like stoners. I don't like, the people who are
Like the guy at the gym who every Sunday he comes
shows
at
up
5 in the morning.
reeking.
Freaks.
No.
It's like he's hotboxing the gym. And like that is not a culture.
Yeah, and just people who make it their life, and I'm like, whatever, man. Like you do you, but like I don't like it because it just adds to the stigma. And it's like, no, like I'm a working professional, and this doesn't impact my life. If anything, it adds value because I can finally sleep. I can relax in the evening.
Can get creative. It
bed.
unlocks a different layer of
Yeah.
thinking. And
But it's going back to like the whole like abuse anything. The botanical space. I do think sometimes people do. Like they're all very safe, right? Cannabis is very safe. Kratom in moderate doses is safe. Mushrooms are safe. Cannabis is safe, right? But like even like with kava, I've had days like where I'm trying new kava for like a review, and I use it, maybe mid morning and then afternoon and evening.
Yeah.
And you have too much kava, like literally, like you have to keep like one eye open because it fucks you up.
Yeah.
It's called getting money, and like you feel, like you're like, okay, like this shit is putting me on my ass.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I'm like, that's not what I drink kava for.
right.
I just may have overdid it that day, and I think if people can recognize like when they overdo something, it's like, all right, well next time, now I know my dosage, I'm not going to push it to that point.
That's exactly right. I mean, you can get a hangover from weed. Everybody says you can is lying to you. Like if you have way too much weed, you'll get the worst headache in the world the next day. You'll be dehydrated. It might not last as long as like alcohol, but I mean, it's uncomfortable. Like when you've done too much, and those effects, you can miss the target with cannabis, just like with anything. I mean, it's the same thing with alcohol. Do you have the maturity to enjoy a nice, 12-year scotch, or are you going to take a a handle of Jack Daniels to the face. It's completely about maturity and experience and your intent. About both. You know what it is?
Depends on the situation.
I mean, I've been in the military 20 years. That's the only. I only know one speed and one way to like mask pain. So
So I think that is a good point. Let's kind of bring it back to the military because you both have experience in the military. And I think that was one of my biggest frustrations when Charles was active duty is I think the military members are the people in society who need cannabis the most. And I think it's insane that CBD is even, banned. Kava is now banned. And I think it's crazy how much alcohol, like you said, is pushed and it's expected. And what really can help these people is banned. How did that make you guys feel when you were active duty?
Well, so my job was interesting. I started in chem biodefense, but I ended up in forensic toxicology. So I was running the Hawaii drug lab as the deputy commander for processing 1 million samples of peat a year, which, by the way, come in every color and smell.
did you know this?
Yeah, I've seen peat that color. And sometimes, and this was like during the height of the war too. So
I look awkward, so I'd be like, yeah, bro, what's going on, dude?
you look at you pour it, it's like molasses. Okay, anyways.
Does it taste like molasses?
You imagine what I mean when you get this test.
Sommelier.
That's a strong terpene there.
Very, very strong aroma.
The piss terpenes.
And where some of that, those beautiful attributes come from, like everybody leaves theater has to pee in a bottle, right? Well, that pallet of piss accumulates and sits on a tarmac in Kandahar for a couple months before it gets sent to our lab in Hawaii. So, and some of those boxes are broken, so you're kind of peeling them box apart.
It's still usable to test.
Yeah, as long as the container is not,
Okay.
it's forensically sound and there's a good chain of custody, we can test it. So in doing that, I became an expert witness. So getting up on the witness stand in UCMJ proceedings and talking about laboratory reliability and how could the laboratory have fucked up or not to disadvantage the service member's case. And then when you get a little bit better at it, the defense starts calling you, not to talk about my lab, but other labs. There's 4 other DoD labs that test for the services. It's regional. It's, not service specific. So, I might fly to Fort Meade, Maryland or something like that to help someone in their defense when they're being accused by a commander of popping hot. It's like, well, was there innocent ingestion? What else is going on? What's the human performance and behavior? Was it in the context of a sexual assault? Was there a blackout? All that kind of stuff. And what I saw were service members with the worst problems looking for answers because the doctors have given them opioids and fucking benzos, and then their buddies take them out like, hey, you'll be fine, let's go get a fucking hamburger. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that is the culture. And so like a little bit of cannabis for some of those people is exactly right. Now, those people might need to be out of the military right now. They're
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's probably time because they're being impacted that much, but they stay in, they still get piss tested, their retirement's blown away by, a bad UCMJ case and stuff like that. And the physical damage and the mental damage happening to service members that were abusing opioids and benzos and alcohol, I couldn't stomach it anymore. So I wanted to not use alcohol as much as I could. I loved to freaking party when I was in the military, and I didn't know what moderation was. Now I literally can't stand being drunk. I love having a beer. There's terpenes and beers. Caryophyllene and hemolite. But hops is a cannabis genus. Right?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
And it has humulene and caryophyllene in it. And those are some of those terpenes you smell have that effect. But I'm not trying to get completely wrecked. So when I left military drug testing and laboratory reliability in that space, I said I'm going to come into the safety space of cannabis and make sure that whatever products are going out there, want veterans to have access to them, and they better be safe. They better be dosed appropriately, free of metals and pesticides. And, now it's like, what can we do to add value to those products?
Yeah, that's a good point. And, Mikey, me and you are from the same communities, man. And, as flyers, you literally have bars in the squadron. Straight up, you have a bar in the squadron. So
You have bottles at your desk. When you're done doing check rides,
Yep.
good job, here's a handle.
Yeah, first flight, last flight, 50 flight.
Yep.
Shower them in champagne, like
Tuesday flight,
yeah,
Wednesday flight.
Hey, Monday, man.
night flight, day flight.
Mornings.
Yeah.
It's the culture, and that's kind of like why we all ended up linking up. Was like, now that I'm getting out of the service, I want to, like you said, provide veterans, because I can't provide it to service members who are actively in, but I know a lot of those kids that got Article 15s, 3 DUIs back in the day. I've heard stories from when my dad was in, like, allegedly you used to be able to smoke like in Vietnam on the back of the truck and then launch airplanes and fight wars, and now it's like you can't do anything except drink a whole lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
They used to have alcohol vending machines at the dorms where you could get beers like you could get Cokes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, here, let's give this 18-year-old that just came in 25-cent beers, and what's the worst that could happen? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
nothing bad can happen from that.
So just seeing all of that over the course of this 20 years, I'm kind of like, there's got to be a better way that we can at least, especially after 20 years of fighting a war, like there's a lot of veterans out there that are abusing everything under the sun. And like you said, if we can provide them something safe, effective, and from phenoterps, if we try to combine and do like a functional beverage, give them some sort of like emotional connection, a ritual tie-in, maybe not like the full retard Everclear, 40% alcohol stuff, and give them something where you could come home, still be a functioning father or mother, and play with your kids, make dinner, enjoy life, versus trying to forget about your life and, pushing everything down, which is what you have to do for 20 years until you retire and you're like, ooh, now I can pull all that sadness out. We can start unpacking this now.
Now we can deal with it.
Yeah.
That's I love cannabis. That's one thing I love about like when we found kava was because it is a good alcohol replacement. It's got some ritual to it and it makes you feel good, and it's psychoactive, but it's not psychedelic, right? So it's not like cannabis where it kind of takes you out a little bit, like in moderation. And it's funny, man, because like with the podcast, ever since started Cobb and Kettlebells 3 years ago, like we've had so many service members, veterans reach out, because a lot of them know that I was in and out, who reach out and be like, I like was literally at the point of like just like being done.
Yeah.
Like done.
Yeah.
With alcohol and what the VA was giving them.
Yeah.
And then they were like, then I found kava, I found cannabis,
Yeah.
and I can like function now. And it's like, fuck, man, like how can we make this more? Because yes, like veterans are like an isolated group of society, and I think they are different civilians with experiences, and especially like all the GWAT kind of era, right? That's just like it's just I would say besides like first responders and police, like it's just a different lifestyle. And so like how can we make this more mainstream? How can we get this into more people's hands? And even now, I mean, we look at Gen Z, they're not drinking alcohol.
That's right.
They're looking for other stuff. And I think that's even probably kind of go to the next topic. And I'm not saying like, it's just about the money, but like it's also a good thing to capitalize on.
It is.
So like how do we provide this generation who's not drinking, and also everyone who's kind of waking up and being like, all right, what else is out there? And they're looking for effects.
Yeah.
So how do we provide them effects?
Yeah.
I think that kind of goes into like what you guys are trying to do too, with functional beverages, bringing terpenes in. So how does that kind of look, and what do you guys kind of think about what's on the horizon?
Well, before you get cooking, I just want to say he said the podcast name wrong, because at the beginning we said
That's right.
Cannabis and kettlebells.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that's out there.
It's the beginning and the end. Yeah.
This is a takeover.
It's the takeover.
But you can press now.
So yeah, well, thank you for that, because this was Cannabis and Kettlebells first episode.
Oh, I think I got my arm around you.
You did.
So Yeah, I mean, look to the wisdom of what the boomers are doing. They're drinking less alcohol, and they're the fastest growing segment of cannabis consumers.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that with cannabis.
Boomers.
Okay.
No way.
Yeah. And I don't know for sure, but it's got to be because it's an alternative to alcohol. And think of a generation that's had nothing but alcohol to treat themselves, unless they've gone to a doctor. And most of them don't want, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that segment is one indicator. Another indicator is the replacement of alcohol with social beverages. So that are formulated in a way where they're stable, they act quickly, and you can have that reduction of anxiety and like an elevated feeling from these, low dose drinks and beverages that you can drink with other people in a setting and have a glass in your hand just like you've always had.
Yeah, and it's not an O'Doul's that says non-alcoholic.
Exactly. It's like, no, I'm doing something different, and this isn't going to make me sick, and I'm not doing it to get fucked up. I'm doing it to enjoy where we are right now.
And remember.
It. Yeah, exactly. And so that it takes a lot more energy and therefore money to create the structure inside these beverages to provide those effects. And that's where the technology comes in. It's not just the terpenes. It's also how we mix. The amount of the ingredients and the amount of energy you put into that beverage can stabilize the particle size. And what do I mean by that? I mean bioavailability of the active ingredient. It hits your body at a reliable, predictable, in a reliable and predictable fashion. And cannabis products now aren't necessarily going to provide that. You might have no effect, or you might have too much of an effect. So as it becomes more mainstream, we're also seeing the science and technology become more mainstream, and the practicality of replacing alcohol in a social setting is finally a reality. And what I see is the crossover between, like the kava world and the cannabis world, where people are trying to do the same thing, eliminate alcohol with that kind of beverage. And we're seeing other things like with 7-OH and kratom and the synthetic cannabinoids. There are the bad players out there trying to maximize profit by producing stuff that might be dangerous, not just dangerous from a potency perspective, but from a byproduct perspective, because this is no longer extraction. Now we're talking about chemical reactions that should be happening in a pharmaceutical GMP environment, but they're happening in a grow. That kind of stuff shouldn't be happening. So there's still risks out there, but the segment that is growing are the well-manufactured products aimed at replacing alcohol. And that's why I think there's a lot of crossover in what we can learn from each other and how we can provide those benefits. It's all about education. If somebody doesn't know that you can get muddy or you can get a weed hangover, and then they have that, they're like, this freaking sucks. It's like, well, you just had a bad experience.
I'll just go back to my safe place with alcohol.
Yeah.
And
from a real
Safe, predictable thing that I know.
The one thing alcohol has over everything else, predictability. The same blood alcohol level impairs you behind the wheel of a car, no matter what your experience is. And that was, Robert F. Borkenstein in the 50s. There's no Borkenstein curve for how fucked up you are and how much alcohol you've had for cannabis or for kava. You know why? Because it's multiple effects, multiple receptors, multiple and active ingredients that provide an entourage effect, and your individual biochemistry comes into play. So it's a little more nuanced, and it takes more education and learning. But I think the value is there if you can avoid the poison of alcohol and treat yourself with something enjoyable. We're all going to be better for it.
And I think what you guys are, getting towards too, which could be really cool, is, again, not just adding those terpenes to cannabis products, but add those terpenes to a kava product or kratom product.
Yeah.
Because we talked about, certain terpenes that might give you the feeling of being woken up, right? Well, we know that like white kratom for 90% of people is energizing, wakes you up. Like we use it pre-workout. So if you have like a white kratom drink and add those terpenes in that wake you up, right? So then you get a little bit of that smell, you get like slight taste. I know it doesn't cover everything,
right?
But then you get all that kind of entourage effect with an herb botanical or like kava, right? Most kava at the end of the day is relaxing, even the heavy ones. But, let's say you have like a really good heavy kava that people like to drink in the evening, and you add terpene in there, and that maybe gives you like more like a, was it sandalwood? Was like a essential oil?
For calming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you add that in there, and again, it has kind of this like whole effect with it because right now people, and it's been happening for a bit. There's products out there that mix kava and kratom, right? There's kava and kratom shots, drinks. You go to a kava bar. A lot of times they'll make like drinks that combine kava and kratom. We're starting to see Blue Lotus, Damiana, Kana, which kind of acts on your serotonin, right?
Mm.
And then, also some more mushrooms coming in. But I would say kava and kratom had the most like acute effects, for people to feel right away. But like we're not seeing terpenes,
Not yet.
but it sounds like it's a perfect match in the botanical world.
We should be doing it right now. They're all botanicals. They're all botanical formulations. Just because some of the formulations and effects are inspired by the cannabis plant, which is all they are. Botanical terpene mixing is inspired by cannabis. It's not cannabis. That said, cannabis extracted terpenes could go into other products. That's another step and more expensive. But botanical terpene mixtures and formulations that we've come up with that could formulate a beverage so it smells like something that is going to wake me up or put me to sleep or have whatever desired effect can completely be transferred over in a complementary way to kava drinks and kratom drinks. That is 100% the future. And not just that, though, the emulsion technologies. So the mixing technologies, we need stability. We need to think about what our preservatives are. Acidic preservatives will break down cavalactams. It's like, well, we got to solve all those things. And then the pharmacodynamics, how fast does it affect you? How bioavailable it is, all comes down to particle size. So I think it's the introduction of all the technologies that we're finding in all the supply chains and coming together and say, okay, what are these creative opportunities we have? So many people want this.
Yeah.
I think we're a little bit ahead, actually. Even though it feels like we're behind, I think we're ahead looking at these technologies and combining them and taking it to the future. For sure.
Yeah, and I think too that I guess we'll just kind of call it the non-alcohol space, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about this at dinner last night. It's growing like crazy. Like kava bars are just exploding. Like it's been like I forget the exact percentage, but it's been an exponential the amount opening up. Non-alcohol bars, like botanical bars, right? But like we're still so much like at the cusp, like beginning of the industry, that when you go down the street, you talk to most people who are like, "Hey, have you drinking kava?" And they're like, "Oh, like the Mediterranean restaurant."
Like I love kava, like not the food, the drink. Oh no, I don't know.
So like it's still like very much untapped, and you got some brands who are getting into mainstream places like Lalo, Kava Seltzer. Like now it's like in Sprouts, right, which is like a national grocery store. It's pretty cool. We're starting to see like THC beverages too at like mainstream places, but it's and I for people listening too, like if you want to get in the space, like it's still so new, and there's still so much growth and exploration to be had. And I think like 5 years from now, I'll just be really curious like what this space looks like because I think it's going to keep on blowing up, keep on growing. I think more and more people are going to accept botanicals and, that stigma will keep on breaking down more. And along with that too, the technology is going to get better. And the drinks will get better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. And we're seeing it at shops. I mean, the shop you guys have, but then you go to like a brewery, and it's not all Budweiser. It's those, special micro brews, and they might have a rose petal drink or a cider, it's got some terpenes in it. I think we're going to see more and more crossover as the education and the products improve.
Nice. So what's the future for you? What's the next year you think look like for you guys? What's the big goals? What's the small goals?
I'm relying on him. Well, I've been in testing, analytical testing, starting labs across the country. Started one in Tucson that we closed recently. Cannabis testing has always been my thing, cannabis and food testing, but this side project that I've had with formulation has now become the main focus, and that's why Mike has joined. And we're just getting the word out there with what we've got, what our products are, and how we can help, not just from a formulation perspective, but quality management systems inside of a manufacturing or grow environment. What is good manufacturing practice? Can you get a certification on the door that's going to make you an acquisition target for big alcohol, big pharma, whatever comes in to take over the cannabis supply chain, or resist it? But if there's a federal requirement, they got to meet those things. So that's why we say, pickaxes and shovels. It's not just quality and safety and formulation and terpenes. It's all of it. And it's all the value add, things we can do with the product that we're aiming at. So it's about getting the word out, starting collaborations, and pushing new products. I mean, right now we're producing CQ drinks. This is the original cannabis lemonade from 2011.
Tell us about these.
Yeah.
I'm sharing them.
Oh, here you go. These have 100 milligrams of THC in
boy.
them.
I can't touch those.
That's crazy. I would be in the hospital if I drank that whole thing.
We would both be in the hospital tonight. We would be.
Thankfully, there's a little measuring,
Yes.
window on the side,
Oh,
and
I love
a
that.
capful
Okay.
is 5 milligrams. So while these taste great on their own, and that they taste great because we put so much energy into emulsifying them, and we have some botanical terpenes as well, you can't taste the THC, but
Okay.
it is there. Believe me, this is very, very potent. So just 5 milligrams and one cap can be mixed into like a mocktail.
So I love this label. So for our listeners, it has like a little, like you said, there's little dosing on the side, so you know exactly how to measure it. It has a little picture of the capful. It says 1 capful equals 5 milligrams of THC. That's really smart because again, we just don't, portions are tiny. We need, it's all about the dosing, and we like tiny. And that's what's always so frustrating about drinks, especially,
Right.
is it's so hard to measure.
Hard to measure, hard to make taste good.
Yeah.
But when you put the work into it, like this company has, and I have the license rights for Arizona, and I know them because they've been my testing client for 10 years. But when I decided to get in the functional beverage space, I said, let's come to Arizona and do this. And now we've begun improving the emulsion as well. So the predictability of this drink's effect and the experience is exactly what you want. So it's all about use cases. You can sneak this into a concert, you can mix it into a bar, or you can bang the whole thing back like you do.
Oh boy.
And believe me, you have the whole range of how people
But
like use
so you're used to taking,
Okay. Unlike alcohol and even some other drugs, your cannabis tolerance goes way up very fast and way down after you quit.
Yeah.
So some people, like I could probably do this 100 milligrams today. I know people that could do 2 or 3. That's crazy.
That's
Right.
mind-blowing to me.
It is mind blowing, but we don't know that from people just messing around.
Right.
We know that because like stage 4 cancer patients dealing with insane amounts of pain and anxiety get to therapeutic doses that are like a gram of cannabis a day.
Okay.
And it's like,
Gram?
yeah, a total like concentrate, like just alcohol extracted cannabis plants called RSO, Rick Simpson oil. It's like one of the oldest, homemade cancer treatments you could think of. But there's stories out there. They might be anecdotal, but people reversing cancers with that. But you can't really have those effects until you have super high doses. It's like, well, obviously those people are clown too.
Can you match? Because I know with like even just like CBD and the cannabinoid system, I think there's like a lot there, and there's a lot of cool things. So, if in theory, I'm not like it's not like medical advice or anything like that, but if someone wanted the effects of that dose, could they, in theory, just use just a CBD product or like a full spectrum CBD without the THC?
Probably not specifically, and again, everybody's biochemistry is different, so it depends on what they're trying to achieve. And maybe CBD, it was hot because it was legal, but
Yeah.
its effects are, minimal without some THC. The reason for that is there's 2 main receptors, CB1 and CB2. THC binds to CB1, CBD binds to CB2. Okay. And so they're synergistic. So it's a balance between the two. And in fact, all the cannabinoids that are in the plant, there's many that occur naturally. About 30 that we can find naturally. They're all going to have different psychotropic effects. They're all going to have different anti-inflammatory effects or anti-anxiety effects, and it just depends on what your biochemistry does. We're seeing more molecules like THCV, which is like a THC molecule with a couple, like an ethyl group chopped off the side of it. It doesn't give you the munchies. It's like good for hunger suppression.
Okay.
Weird things like that. And again, you have to like kind of hack it with yourself personally. But there's like CBG, it's like a precursor to THC, might have a different effect on you. So,
Because like I like CBN,
sleepy.
right? It's like non-psychoactive, no THC, CBN. I've gotten great results with that.
For sleep,
You know,
yeah.
There's a reason for that. Sleepy weed, you know what sleepy weed is? It's like THC. It's like weed that's been in the drawer for 2 years and you forgot about it. You find it, you smoke it, you go to sleep. But why is that? THC degrades into CBN. That's the byproduct.
Oh,
Gotcha.
interesting.
Okay.
So I actually have a CBD. I have a sleep variety of CQ that has 100 milligrams of THC plus 20 milligrams of CBN, and also like a glycine, valerian root, and some other natural sleep.
Yeah.
And it just
can't do valerian root. It gives me nightmares.
well, you shouldn't have that. But that doesn't work for me. Even though I sell a lot of that, our dispensaries in Arizona sell a ton of that product. What puts me to sleep is a 50-50 CBD THC.
Okay.
Nothing else special with it. For whatever reason, night for me.
And that's a perfect example. That's how your body responds to it.
Exactly. And we market that as the relief, our SKU, because it's good for anxiety, good for a little bit of pain. But if I need to just sleep for 12 hours, I'll do that.
Okay.
So to each their own.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool, and I'm just even thinking too, with all the stuff out there, like it can be like overwhelming, even for someone, like I was just always just used to like weed's weed, man, and then even like starting to go to like the hemp shops, like when we were like in Alabama and stuff, seeing like THCO and like all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, I just like what's gonna give me?
So that is a total problem because for the most part, weed is weed. It has like a general effect, and everything else we're talking about is more or less nuance. The economic incentive to produce synthesized cannabinoids has provided that opening, and underneath the Farm Bill, for whatever reason, there's the loophole that says you have to be under 0.9% or 0.3% Delta 9 THC. Well, in flower, Delta 9 THC is not normally there. It's a degradation product, a heat degradation product of THCA, tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. So that's not psychoactive, but it's what's in the flower. And so dispensary sold flower actually qualifies as Farm Bill THCA hemp. There's no difference between the supply chains now, except one license costs you $25 million. Whereas we could be in Texas a couple nights ago and buy a frickin' pre-roll on the street. That's the same weed you get in a dispensary in Arizona. So it's out there. Now here's the problem. That economic incentive, coupled with the lack of testing, coupled with the permissibility created by the Farm Bill loophole, has allowed things like THCP to be, which is not a nascent, natural cannabinoid. It's 3 times stronger than THC. I'm sorry, but many, many times stronger. And another one, THC acetate, is many, many times stronger than THC. Well, the problem with that is they can degrade into things that we don't know anything about. THCO can create a poison when it's heated. So if you're doing a THCO vape, it's no longer cannabis. It's a synthetic molecule that creates literally a chemical warfare agent in your lungs. It's like,
it's horrible.
Horrible.
It's crazy.
And not only that, let's say something was made appropriate, but let's say you converted CBD to Delta 9 THC, which is what they do in the hemp world, to sell gummies online at gas stations. If you don't have any testing, you don't know what the potency is, you don't know what all the contaminants that could be there, like you would find normally in a dispensary, but it's worse than that. There's, there's different, there's catalytics that are used to do some of these reactions, and those are toxic as well. And so all those, there's not just byproducts, there's like nasty things that would be removed in a pharmaceutical setting. They're just making it in the gas station.
And in Alabama, Alabama's very behind the times, so they didn't have kava bars. And so we would use Delta 8, Delta 9, because that's what was available. And yes. I always said, this is crazy. This is so unpredictable. This is so dangerous. And we never knew what it was going to feel like, and especially the gummies, and it was always different. And I'm like, it's crazy to me that this is legal, and this is so this is a Wild West in my opinion.
That is.
And versus having actual marijuana when I had my medical card in Arizona.
Mhm.
Like, that was so much safer. This is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's
And
all
again,
we,
like-
it's all we had.
But at the end of the day, and like we learned our lesson with a gas station.
Gas
What
station
you guys said
reviews.
last night.
Yeah.
It was Delta 8. For some reason, Delta 8 is.
Way worse than Delta.
I know it's like half potency, but the paranoia on it
And the unpredictability of it, I feel
yeah,
like.
we were, and like that's probably like a Darwin scenario here with like don't go to a gas station.
Yeah, don't buy anything.
Delta 8, gummy,
At a minimum, require some testing. Demand your intuition is right. Your experience is spot on. I mean, look, even if it's done safely, produced safely, they could have the potency completely wrong. They could have a mixing error where there's a hot spot and you have the one gummy with 200 milligrams in it. It's like,
I swear that's what we got.
and if that's what happened to you, I mean, that's not a unique experience. That's a
Right.
problem.
And I hear these stories all the time.
The problem is it doesn't make people that sick. They just have a bad experience.
Yeah.
And that's like too like.
It's a funny story, so.
Yeah.
Oh, we heard it.
It's pretty good. Like,
Pretty funny, but and that's that's funny too. For people listening to like if you never smoked, like you hear about the bad trips, like you get through it, right? And you look back, it's actually kind of funny. But during the time, you're like, what is going on?
I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah, that's
Call the rescue squad. Like, it's like, just go lay down. Like, you'll be fine.
Well, as we kind of wrap things up, I would love for you guys to leave our audience with any kind of last words and let them know where they can find you, on social media, if they want to buy your products, where they can get hold of them, and yeah.
Sure. Well, thanks for having us. This has been super enjoyable. You can find most of our products on phenoterps.com, www.phenoterps.com. And those are our botanical terpene blends and flavors. So if you're a manufacturer, we can support you. And through that website or by emailing us, I'm Robert@phenoterps.com and he's Mike at phenoterps.com. We can help with emulsion support, formulation across all industries. We're looking to help and support. And CQ Drinks in Arizona. CQ Drinks can also be purchased online under the hemp bill. It's
Nice.
corporate CQ sells those, but mine tastes the best because I formulate them. That's what we're up to, and that's where you can find us.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think again, like I think there's like a massive market that's untouched with terpenes and botanicals, and I think it'd be pretty cool to see you guys, collaborate and maybe do products and stuff like that. I think it would be it makes sense from my perspective. I'm surprised it hasn't really been done on a mass scale yet, and just kind of thinking about everyone kind of in the botanical community, I think people will be like very welcoming to terpenes. And again, going to like the health effects, the entourage effects, I think it's all there for a very holistic product. And sounds like something we'll probably see in the future.
Love to collaborate.
Yeah, we'll be back for another takeover.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot to talk about, like just to digest in this, and this is
the first episode
yeah.
of our new podcast.
Yeah, we got at least 10 lined up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should be our first guest.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been great, and I'm excited to try these.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Enjoy it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells, where we talk about kava, fitness, and life. Let's get kava-fied.